So Hare Krishna, everyone. Once again, welcome to our Gita Gyan, Essence of Bhagavad Gita, level 1. And this is day 14. So the chapter we will be doing will be chapter 14 as well. Dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai Sri Sri Nitai Sundar Gaura Hari Panchatattva Ki. And this is Sri Sri Radha Radha Shamasundar. This is Radha Shamasundar in ISKCON Vrindavan. So yesterday we showed the Krishna Balaram deity. So this is Radha Shamasundar. And here's a bit of close-up to their... So it's very beautiful deities. This is one of the earliest deities given to ISKCON and established in Vrindavan, directly installed by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimha iti Namine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayatim Girim Yadkripa Tamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Om Tatsat. So we will continue with chapter 14 today. But before we continue with chapter 14, I just wanted to recap a little bit about what we discussed yesterday so we can understand. I've tried to put it in a different way so we can understand again the salient points that we covered. So we were talking about basically Prakriti and all that. So we'll come to that. So we have the body, right? So we are the Atma. We know we are the soul, Atma, and we have our body. So there are two types of bodies within us. So one is called the gross material body. So the gross material body is what we can see with our tangibly, our skin, our organs, our bones, our teeth, our hair, all of this is gross material body. And it is understood that it is basically made up of 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, and ether. And these 5 basic primal elements, they combine and basically they will transmute. For example, fire and water combine to form Pitta, ether and air, Vata, earth and water, Kapha. So these are called the 3 doshas, which is in the body. So like that, the transformation will occur, and again, they will transform again, and several transformations will take place until skin, marrow, blood, bone, flesh, organs are all formed within the body. So this is all called gross material body. And we also have another body. This is called the subtle material body. So the subtle material body is made up of subtle elements. Though they are subtle, that means they cannot be seen, but they are still material. That means part of this material nature. Prakriti. So what are they? We discussed yesterday: mind, intelligence, and the ego. So these three are the subtle material body. So both of these, the gross and the subtle, are both material, and they make up the body. So within this, trapped within in this, is the spirit soul. So the spirit soul, according to its desires and according to its karma, gets a particular type of body by which he can engage with the body and attain its desires. So what happens at death? So at death, what happens is there is a separation. So the gross material body is killed. It becomes old and it's dead, no longer useful. So then the subtle material body, together with the soul, is transferred. It comes out of this gross material body and it goes into another gross material body which has been prepared according to its karma and its desire. So just like how the air brings the fragrance of the rose from the garden, so in the same way, the subtle body, which is made up of mind, intelligence, and ego, carries the soul with the pranas together like that. It brings to the next body. So this we understood yesterday. Okay. So now we would move on. We also talked about this fields of activity, right? We talked about the gross elements. Just now we mentioned earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So this earth, water, fire, air, and ether, they will further transform and eventually they form the 5 jnana indriyas or jnanendriyas, the knowledge acquiring senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. And these will further differentiate, and it will form the working senses, the 5 karmendriyas, working senses, which are the voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. And then we also have what we call the sense objects. So based on this working senses, knowledge acquiring senses, and the gross elements, our body, we would want to engage with our desires. So these desires will take the form of sense objects, so which is also a creation of material energy. So they are matter, right? So these sense objects are form, sound, smell, taste, and so in this way, we would like to enjoy the material creation with our working senses and knowledge acquiring senses. Okay. Don't mind if I mute some people here. All right. Okay. So then with this, what we get, we also have the subtle body, which I mentioned just now: mind, intelligence, false ego. So all of these is material. And initially, they were not differentiated. They were all one. They didn't differentiate themselves into gross, knowledge, working, sense object, subtle body. They're all one single element initially. So this unmanifested stage is called pradhan. So that we covered yesterday. So don't worry, we will again just quickly go through some of them again in chapter 14. They will be briefly revisited. All right, so we also spoke about how in the material world, okay, this part I think I will skip. I will just go straight to yesterday's takeaway. So Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetranya. We talked about these things. I will again revisit them today. So, and we also talked about Jnana and Jnayam. Jnana means the knowledge, and Jnaya means the object of knowledge, which is Krishna or the Supreme Lord. And we also heard about how hearing with faith from scripture or devotees can deliver us. So this is what we discussed yesterday. Okay, so we will go on. So I will go to the Gita Mahatmya before we go on to chapter 14. Gita Dita Chaya Yena Pi Bhakti Bhavena Chetasa Veda Shastra Puranani Tena Ditani Sarvasaha. The study of the Vedas and Puranas, verily the study of all scriptures, is completed in all respects by one who studies the Gita with devotion. Okay. I believe this is the same one which I mentioned yesterday. I forgot to refresh. Apologies for that. Okay, so then let's go on with our chapter 14. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we already recapped this just now, and the takeaways we've already covered. So today, chapter 14 is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. It's also called Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. So to understand Vibhaga, Guna, the three modes. So previously we have already introduced to you these three modes. If you remember, Satyam, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. So why we're talking about these three modes? So it's basically a continuation from chapter 13, because previously the material creation was discussed, elaborated, how from the five elements we get the knowledge acquiring senses, the working senses, and then in this way we try to enjoy. And all this is basically working under the three modes of nature. So our taste, manner of enjoyment, manner of activity, our behavior all falls into these three categories of the three modes. So we are going to discuss these three modes, because from here we can understand the nature of karma, and that will be discussed in the next chapter. Okay. So we have 14.1 and 14.2. Basically, Krishna tells Arjuna about understanding the knowledge of material creation or material elements, so that we can understand the ultimate goal. So Prakriti Jnana, the knowledge of material energy, so that we can, from there, we can understand what is the absolute supreme. So the Param Gatim, the ultimate truth. So therefore, 14.2 here, idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sarge api nopajayante pralayena vyatanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So this is the goal. So why Krishna is giving us this knowledge? So as I mentioned yesterday also, chapters 1 to 6 basically talks about how we can attain the supreme, which is how we can attain the supreme goal by streamlining our activities. So by action, from karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, by performing activities, we can step by step come to the supreme goal, which is bhakti for the Supreme Lord. And then 7 to 12 spoke in detail about that, the supreme goal of Krishna, and also the means of bhakti. And then 13 to 14, we are talking about from jnana, from knowledge, from understanding about matter and spirit, how can we come to the ultimate truth? So basically, there are three types of people. So some of them like to, they are the type of people who like to think and speculate. So in this sense, jnana will be very interesting for them. So this is the goal, to come to the ultimate point, which is Krishna. So then from 14.3 to 14.5, Krishna will speak a little bit more about Brahman and Prakriti. So here's the verse. Mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhavaha sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata. So if you remember, we've already mentioned that the supreme truth or the ultimate goal of life can be or Bhagavan can be understood in three stages. So the Bhagavan stage is the first stage, and what is understood in the Bhagavan stage? Eternity. So those components which are eternal, we can understand that is Brahman. So then after that, we understand that all of these has a source, and that source is localized aspect of Paramatma, living in every entity's heart. And then we also understood that all this Paramatma, though it is differentiated, though it is separated, actually it is all one. Still it is not separated. So if you remember, we mentioned this Achintya verse, the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Though he is separated and situated everywhere, but at the same time, he is not separated. So therefore, this is Achintya Shakti of the Lord. And that ultimate single personality is the Bhagavan realization. So like that, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So now here is talking about material energy. He's talking about creation. He's talking about the material universe and all that. So sometimes this is also called Brahman. Why this is called Brahman? So we will talk about that in a while. Okay. So therefore, the total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate. So let's see how to understand this very nicely. But before we go to that, the same point is also mentioned in one of the Vedas. In the Mundaka Upanishad, there's this verse, Tasmat etad Brahma nama rupam anam cha jayate. So it's repeating the same point. This total material substance, the Mahat Tattva, is described as Brahman. So Brahman can mean many things. So just be a little patient. I'm going to come to that aspect where I'm going to discuss what is Mahat Tattva, what is Brahman, so we can understand clearly. So, but before that, let's just finish these few verses. Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavantiya tasham brahma mahat yonir aham bija pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So we have understood that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and he has all kinds of energies which serve the Supreme Lord. But broadly, they can be categorized into two. One is called spiritual energy, and the other is called the material energy. So if you remember this model, we have discussed this before, right? So there are many types of spiritual energy. One of the spiritual energy of the Lord is the jivas. All of us, all the living entities are part of that spiritual energy of the Lord. So, but at the same time, the shadow of that spiritual energy is the material creation, material energy, right? So we will talk about how we will remember this first and we will refer back to it in a while. Okay. So here Krishna is saying that I am the seed-giving father, and the birth in this world is made possible due to this prakriti, this material energy. So in the next few verses, Mahat Tattva is the basis of life. Now, what is this Mahat Tattva or Brahman? We will discuss in a while. Krishna, the supreme father of all the jivas. So that we have seen here, I am the seed-giving father. So we are all children of God. And it's interesting for us to understand this in a proper way. So material nature consists of three modes. So that we will also talk about. Okay, now let's discuss this. So we understand that Krishna, Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, Parameshwara, right? Param Ishvara, he is the source and possessor of all Shaktis, different types of energies. So as I said, we can broadly categorize them into two. They are innumerable, but still we can categorize them into two. So the first energy is called the spiritual energy. It's also in Sanskrit called Antaranga Shakti, right? Or Para. Para means the superior energy. So this energy has many types. By this energy, Krishna creates the material world. Krishna creates the spiritual world. Krishna creates the various pastimes, and he incarnates in different ways. He expands himself. So all kinds of things he is able to do with these energies, and they're all perfectly under the control of the Supreme Lord. One of these energies is what we call the jivas, the jiva tattvas. The jivas or the souls, the living entities, is part of this. Just one of the aspects of this energy. Now, this spiritual energy has a shadow. The shadow of this spiritual energy is called the Bahiranga Shakti, or the external energy. So this energy is called material energy. So it's a shadow basically. So therefore we can divide this, we can understand from this divide that this material energy is categorized as material, whereas the Antaranga Shakti is categorized as spiritual. So what's the difference? Both also are energies of the Lord, both also are directly from Krishna, but the material energy is simply a reflection. It's like a shadow of this energy. This is the Lord, the Supreme Lord always only associates directly with the spiritual energy. He doesn't associate with the material energy. But nevertheless, there is a shadow of this. So why is this necessary? We will talk about that in a while. Now, both these energies, together with the Jiva and the Supreme Lord, together, they are all called Brahman. So together, all of them are loosely referred to as Brahman. Why they are referred to as Brahman? Because they are all eternal. The Supreme Lord is eternal. The energies of the Supreme Lord, the spiritual energy is eternal. The material energy is also eternal. But there is one very important difference. The important difference is the spiritual energy does not transform. It remains the same. Just like the jivas, we remain the same. Whereas the material energy never remains the same. It keeps on transforming. So that's the essential difference. But still, it is eternal. From time immemorial, the material energy has been existing. The material world, the material creation, they simply come and go, but they are just either manifest or unmanifest. So they're transforming. So therefore, they all share the same category called Sat or eternal. And therefore, they are Brahman, right? But there is still a distinction between Brahman and Parabrahman. So Parabrahman is the source of everything. He is the Supreme Lord. So though Krishna is also called Brahman, but he is also directly Parabrahman. So why I'm saying this, because when we read Vedic scriptures and different scriptures, there are many things which sometimes will be categorized as Brahman. So if we understand this properly, then we will not get confused. So that's why I'm putting this model here so that we understand it. Now let's look at this Bahiranga Shakti. Now, Bhagavad Gita will not speak too much about the spiritual energy. Now we want to understand the material energy. Why we want to understand the material energy? Because we are dealing with it. We are in this world, material world, and we need to know how it works, right? So the material energy. So this Bahiranga Shakti. So to help us understand, as I mentioned earlier, the Bahiranga Shakti, though it is eternal, it keeps transforming, it keeps changing. So there is transmutation, whereas the spiritual energy remains the same throughout. So for example, we can understand the seed. Let's say we take the seed of a banyan tree, right? A simple acorn, the seed. The seed can remain, you can say that the banyan tree is unmanifested inside the seed. It is within the seed, but it's unmanifested. It's not shown, right? And it's all within, trapped. And it can remain dormant in this way for a long time until right conditions come. So when, for example, when there's spring, so when there's lots of sunshine or when there's sufficient rainwater, so in the right conditions, when it's subjected to these conditions, then this acorn or the seed will begin to manifest. It will differentiate. It will start to manifest. And then eventually it will form a sprout, right? Like a small sapling will come out. How did this happen? Due to this initial energetic from the sun, energy from the sun and water from the cloud, the rain. So eventually, then this seed will become the full, complicated, complex, large banyan tree. So all came from the seed. So in the same way, we can try to understand the transformations of this material energy of the Lord. So initially, the material energy is called pradhan. Pradhan means it is unmanifested, it is undifferentiated. Unmanifested means it's not visible. You see, the banyan tree is not there yet in the seed. And it is undifferentiated because nothing has come out of it. The leaves haven't come out, the roots haven't come out, the branch hasn't come out. So in that way, pradhan means everything was a single substance in the beginning. So that is called pradhan, unmanifested and undifferentiated. It is part of the, it is the material energy. So when the Lord glances upon this pradhan, when he looks upon this pradhan, that glance agitates this pradhan, and it's like giving energy to the pradhan. So the pradhan becomes agitated and it begins to become active. So it's like, and when it becomes active, then it is said it is manifested. So it's called now prakriti, actively manifested energy of the Lord. Though it is the material energy, it is now active. So at that stage, it's called prakriti. Okay. So prakriti is already manifested. What's the difference, pradhan and prakriti? Both are undifferentiated. You can see here the acorn is still not yet sprouted yet. It's undifferentiated. Yeah. But this one was unmanifest. This is now manifest because it's energized. So then what will happen? Then the transformation will further take place. And this transformation is called Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva means that it is manifested already, but this energy now takes on differentiation. It begins to differentiate into various parts. You know, leaves will form, roots will form, trees will form, the branches will form, like that. So in the same way, in the beginning, everything was pradhan, and then when the pradhan was glanced upon by the Supreme Lord, and then that pradhan becomes agitated, it becomes Mahatattva. And when Mahatattva, further due to the agitation, it will now expand itself. It will differentiate itself. So how will it differentiate? The first thing it will form is the gross Panchabhutas: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Okay? And then these combinations, in various combinations, will form the entire creation. And at the same time, it will also form the bodies for all the living entities. So the Mahat Tattva is responsible to form the field of activity in terms of the actual material creation. At the same time, also the body, which is also called the field of activity. Now remember, in chapter 13, we talked about the field. The field is called Kshetra. Okay? So the 5 elements will further differentiate into the knowledge acquiring senses, the working senses. So this we mentioned earlier just now, and we discussed it yesterday. So these are all differentiations to produce the body, so that and then the subtle body is also created. This is also part of the material energy, Mahatattva, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are all material, right? And this is subtle. So this is the gross body plus the subtle body. Now the body, the subtle body accompanies the soul within this material world. When the soul enters into this material world, it becomes covered by the subtle body. And then it is injected into the gross body within the Mahatattva. And in this way, it is able to enjoy its desires by interacting with the sense objects, which is also produced by the Mahatattva. Okay, so we can understand the Mahatattva is preparing the Kshetra, the field. And in this way, the entire material creation is created. So back to this, so we can understand what Bahiranga Shakti is all about, right? It's basically just a mere shadow of the spiritual energy of the Lord. So Pradhan is when it's not manifested, when the Lord glances at it, it becomes Prakriti. Now, why does the Lord glance at Prakriti? It's a very important question. The Lord glances at Pradhan to energize the Pradhan to become Prakriti, because the Jivas have said that they want to enjoy separately from the Lord. So the father, he has lots of children, all these Jivas. And then the Jivas said, some of them, not all of them, majority, 3/4 of them are all with the Supreme Lord. 1/4 of them, the scriptures say, roughly about 1/4 of them, they want to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. So they don't want to be involved in the devotional service of the Lord. So they want to be separated. So the Lord gives them an opportunity for them to enjoy separately. They cannot do this in the kingdom of God, because in the kingdom of God, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate enjoyer, Purushottama. So there is no scope for them. So therefore, to create a playground, to create a different field of activities. So the Lord has to create a different field of activities where these jivas can pretend to be enjoyers, pretend to be the masters. They can lord over the world. They can do what they like and pursue their desires. So therefore, the Lord looks to the external energy, Bahiranga Shakti. And he glances at Pradhan, and Prakriti is energized, and Prakriti is produced. The different manifestations begins to start. So then the jiva has the desire, and he wants to enter into Prakriti, material creation. So when that happens, the Lord, this is the glance of the Lord, right? The Lord glances at material energy, right? And this glance is the Lord's glance, and that's the one that energizes the Prakriti. And the Prakriti will move on to become Mahatattva. It will differentiate itself. It will create the entire material creation. Everything is ready. Now the Jiva can enter into this material creation. So when he does that, it's like the jivas are pure. They are pure spirit. But when they enter into matter, when spirit enters into matter, we can understand it's like the rain in the clouds is like pure water, right? But when the water enters into the atmosphere, leaves the clouds, when it comes down as rain, it is pure, but slowly it becomes contaminated with the, if there is pollution in the air, it mixes with the air, and sometimes there are some germs in the air, but still it's relatively pure. So as soon as it enters into the material atmosphere, the material creation in Mahatattva, what will happen is the subtle body, according to the desire of the living entity, the subtle body will envelop the soul, and it will be injected into a gross body as per the desire and the karma of the. Initially, there may not be karma, but eventually, as per the desire and the karma of the living entity. So it's like rain. When rain, pure water enters into, it touches the earth. What happens to the water? The water is no longer pure. When it touches the earth, it becomes muddy. So in the same way, the soul is now trapped. It is now conditioned. The word is used is conditioned, right? The conditioned jiva, why is conditioned? He's conditioned by matter. And what is this conditioning? This conditioning is called the three modes of material nature, which is part of the Prakriti. So this chapter will be talking about the three modes of material nature. What is this conditioning, which is conditioning the living entity? And so that is the idea. So, and therefore they take up different bodies. So some different types of mentality, different types of desires, different types of people are there all over according to their desires and karma. So the scriptures give an example. So the example is given of how sometimes this scorpion, it goes and lays its eggs in the rice. So when someone keeps rice, big rice packets in the field, right? So the scorpion likes to go there and likes to lay its eggs. And then suddenly when somebody comes, they will suddenly see scorpions coming out of the rice. So an ignorant person might think, oh, the scorpions have taken birth from the rice only. They think that the rice is the one that's giving birth to the scorpions. So actually, in the same way, right? Material nature is not the cause of the living entity. Material nature is like the rice, and the scorpions which come out is not the is like the living entities. So when the scorpions come out of the rice, we may think that material nature is the one who's giving birth to all of these people, but actually it's not. It is the jiva, the scorpion itself, which went and laid its egg there. It had this desire, and from the desire, we came and took birth in material nature. So material nature is, it's like the mother, but in one sense, but at the same time, it doesn't force us to take our birth here. It's our own choice due to our misuse of our free will. So it should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature. And who is the original seed-giving person? I am the seed-giving father. So that in this verse, we repeat again. Okay? And we move on to to verse 5. Sattvam Rajas Tama Iti. So now we're going to talk about the three modes. So Krishna will now speak in detail about the three modes of material nature. What is this conditioning which is keeping the jivas in the way we are, why we think in a certain way, why we behave in a certain way. So these are the three modes. It's a very interesting point also. And Krishna will go on talking about the three modes in later chapters also. It's like chapter 16 and chapter 17 and chapter 18. We will talk about various aspects of the three modes. So here, Sattvam, Rajas, Tama, the three modes of nature. So material energy, or Durga, right? She conditions the living entities within this material world, and they are tossed and tossed about within this ocean of material miseries by these three modes. So what are these three modes? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Sattva means mode of goodness. Raja means mode of passion. Tamas means mode of ignorance. You would remember this from previous lessons we've discussed. So when the eternal living entity comes in contact with Prakriti, material nature, like how I have explained a few slides just now, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So far, from 14 all the way to 14.5, we have covered about the three modes. So to go further, 14.6, O sinless one, the mode of goodness. So now Krishna begins to explain these three modes in detail. The mode of goodness being purer than the others. So the mode of goodness is better than the other two modes. What is the quality of this mode of goodness? It's illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So amongst the three modes, Krishna is saying the mode of goodness is best. Why it's best? Because the nature is illuminating, it frees people from sinful reactions, because people are living in knowledge. They live and they act and they behave based on goodness principles, sattva, sattvic. But still it is conditioning. It is not liberating, because it is still, though it's mode of goodness, it is still material. It is a material conditioning still. So one has to come out of that also. So Krishna says here, one becomes still conditioned. Why they are conditioned? By a sense of happiness and knowledge. So people who are in the mode of goodness, they feel they're rather peaceful. Their lives are a bit settled. They are not so, you don't find so much of chaos in their lives. And they like to take pleasure in knowledge, and they are peaceful. They like to do peaceful things. They like to do other types of things. So this kind of thing is conditioning them, because they don't want to think further. They don't want to go beyond. They don't want to understand something further. There is a chance, but it's like a conditioning. I'm happy. Why do I need to go further? Why do I need to think about? But they forget that the happiness is temporary. There's always, this world is always full of ups and downs. So they may have a better up and down, right, than most other people, but still, what about their next life? We do not know. So therefore, types of people who are in the mode of goodness, in general, we can understand people who are more like philanthropists, those who are like spiritualists, those who are like scientists or philosophers who like to do things like that, or teachers. So they are generally in the mode of, generally, I'm speaking generally. This is all general. The modes are very complex. So then there is the next one, the mode of passion. Rajo, ragatmakam vidhi, trishna sanga samudbhavam, tan nibadnati kaunteya, karma sangena dehinam. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. So he's the person generally in the mode of passion. You can understand, like those who are very much objective driven, outcome driven. They are like, I want this, I want that, they want to get something out of it. So they have their desires, and lots of them, and at the same time they're willing to work for their desires to attain what they want. And in this way, they go on continuously throughout their lives. So this is the example of, in general, the mode of passion. Always attached. So then we have also the mode of ignorance. Tamastu ajnana jam vidhi, mohanam sarvadehinam, pramadalasya nirabdhis, tan nibadnati bharata. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The result of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. So those who are in the mode of ignorance, they are basically in ignorance. So that means they do a lot of activities without understanding what these activities will cause. So, and most of the time, many of these activities will cause adverse reactions. So they will perform sinful activities like, gambling, addiction, substance abuse. Then they will, meat eating, and what else? Addiction in various ways, illicit relationships. What else? Yeah, so like this, various activities which are all in the mode of ignorance. So the problem with this is it causes more bondage. So Krishna will explain further what is the result of these things. So in short, we can generally categorize the three modes. Sattva is all about balance, harmony, positivity, peace, clarity. Rajas is about movement, activity, energy, excitement, passion. Tamas is inertia, inactivity, negativity, apathy, dullness. So here I'm summarizing the modes, the binding force, the characteristics, and the result of these modes, according to what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So he says the mode of goodness, the binding force is, when I say binding force, that means what keeps us conditioned within this material world. So that means we cannot escape still. We are still conditioned. So the binding force in the mode of goodness is a sense of happiness. So one is rather satisfied and one is not interested to know more. They feel, okay, I'm okay. I don't need to know about the Bhagavad Gita. I don't need to know what Krishna says further. Life and death, escaping from death. What's the necessity? So some people think that way. So there was once, Prabhupada told a story about, it's a real thing. He went to one of the preaching activities. He went to a lady, and this lady is a doctor. She was a psychiatric doctor. So, and she had an asylum. She was like the head of the asylum, and she took care of lunatics, mad patients. So, so somehow she was a little pious. She was a pious lady and everything. And when she wanted to hear Bhagavad Gita. So there was Prabhupada sent one of his disciples there. So he was preaching to her. She was listening to the Bhagavad Gita. Everything was nice. And then he was telling her, this material world is a place of misery. It's full of, it's dukhalayam ashashvatam. And then the lady was smiling and nodding. Yes. It's full of misery. Yeah. My patients are always like that. And then the person continued talking. We should There are the three types of Adi Atmika, Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika, the miseries of the mind. Oh, yes, yes, the lady will answer. Yes, yes, my patients are always like this. And then like that, he will say, okay, then, the three modes of nature, they bind you so much, that the mode of ignorance and all that, they bind us. Then the lady will say, yeah, my patients, they are really going through all these difficulties. Then finally, the person asked, but what about you? So then the lady said, I'm fine. This doesn't affect to me. From the patients, I definitely see this is happening. So that means that person is very much conditioned by the mode of goodness. They do not understand the precarious nature of this material world. Anything can happen at any time, right? Death can happen at any position. So that's why it's binding. So the binding force here is the sense of happiness, the sense of satisfaction, knowledge, and there is also a superiority complex. So these people in the mode of goodness, they tend to sort of look down at others. There's a sense of pride in them that I am great, I'm different, I'm better than the rest of them. So they will look down at people and they will pity them, they will pity others, but nevertheless, that kind of superiority is there. So the characteristics are knowledge. So why they are proud and all that, why they are happy, why they are generally satisfied, because they exist in knowledge. They like to read literature. They like to, their type of desires they have are also in a balanced manner. So because of this knowledge, especially those who have access to scriptural knowledge, so then they are able to avoid sinful reactions. Because in general, people in the mode of goodness, they don't do things like stealing, they don't say lies, they don't do bad things in general. Many people are also vegetarians and things like that. They don't want to harm animals or whatever, and they try to do their bit for the environment. They don't use plastic, so like that. So characteristics are, therefore they don't carry out sinful reactions. So as a result, they get piety, increased piety, and eventually they may come to the level of jnana. So there is a chance if they come in contact with someone with jnana, knowledge, or with bhakti, and if they have sufficient credits, blessings, then they can jump to this easily. But at the same time, there is also these binding forces. So the person in mode of passion, he is attached to fruitive activities, always thinking about, like money or gains, fame, name, fame, glory. They are always thinking about how to advance further, how to get better and bigger and larger. So, and the binding forces, these are all attachments. So they find themselves very attached to all these things. They are very attached to their name, very attached to their fame, very attached to their wealth, very attached to their family members, very, very attached to their possessions. So this attachment is very strong. And these ropes of desire and attachment, so both of them, it's not necessarily both may act at the same way, but it could be either one also. So these are the binding forces which keep the jiva within the three modes and continuous birth and death. So characteristics, what are the type of, how to recognize people or generally in the mode of passion? Intense, unlimited desires and longings, great attachment, fruitive activities. And what's the result of mode of passion? So Krishna says, ultimately, the mode of passion will cause only misery. It will increase one's greed and it will only cause misery. Why misery? Because these attachments that we develop are all material and they are going to be taken away at one point of time. So it's going to cause intense misery. So then we have the mode of ignorance, madness, laziness, sleep. So the binding force is madness itself. They do not understand what is real, what is not real, what is illusion. They put themselves into illusion. They like to tell, they live, the phrase, they like to live in their own world. So people like this, so they go into their own world and they So yeah, anyway, you understand what I mean, I think. So then they are lazy, they are very indolent, lots of inertia. They don't feel like making changes. They don't like to change. They just like to remain the way they are. And predominantly, they like to sleep. So characteristics: delusion, darkness. Darkness here means basically lack of knowledge, madness, and inertia. So because of lack of knowledge in darkness, these kind of activities increase, they do a lot of sinful activities because they can't differentiate due to their delusion and madness. They cannot differentiate what is right and what is wrong. So as a result, further ignorance, the ignorance becomes deeper, the madness becomes deeper. At one point of time, lots of people nowadays, they get into dementia, schizophrenia for various reasons, some medical, some for various purposes. So sometimes it may lead to these things, an illusion. So these are summary from the verses. I put the verses there as well. Now, at the same time, though I've said that these modes are all general for how we can understand the types of people, but at the same time, we cannot classify fully a person is in the mode of goodness or this person is in the mode of passion. We cannot classify 100%. Why? Because the three modes are always changing. Now, predominantly one mode may be very strong, but they are always rotating. So it's like always changing and changing and changing. So there's a lot of intertwined situation. Like the three modes is like very complex. It works together. Like for example, I could say that charity is definitely something you would say mode of goodness, isn't it? So yes, charity is in the mode of goodness. But the manner on how charity is done, further it differentiates into the three modes. For example, if someone does charity for the sake of name, fame, glory, then that is called charity in the mode of passion. So you see, passion within goodness. So it's like intertwined. So in this way, there are several layers of intertwining of the three modes. So we have to be careful to understand. Now in chapters 17, 16, and 18, Krishna will talk more details about this. So, but right now, it's enough for us to understand that these three modes, they don't exist by themselves. They always rotate, and they also intertwine in all our activities. It's like the rope. I put here pictures of the rope, like the three strands. You want to make a rope, you take small threads, we make them into yarns. The fibers form the yarns further intertwine to form the strands, and the strands further intertwine to form the rope. So in this way, the three modes intertwine once, twice, three times, like that at different levels. And like this, these ropes tie, the three ropes, mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, they tie the soul very strongly to the conditioning of this material creation. That's how it works. So 14:10, Krishna continues, sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance, O son of Bharata. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times, ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy in every living entity. So, of course, some may be born in a certain way that they may have more goodness or they may have more passion, but still it is always competing for supremacy. So this is how we can understand the conditioning. So then Krishna continues, what is the result? What happens when someone dies, when there's a particular mode which is very strong in that person? So when one dies in the mode of, we've heard from chapter 6 and chapter 8 and all that, how death is very important. It's like the final exam, and the consciousness at the time of death determines the next destination. So Krishna says here, when one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages. So this is still material. It is still material, But from Bhuloka, they will go to higher loka, Swarga Loka, they may go to Tapa Loka, Mahar Loka, Jana Loka, Satya Loka. So these are all still within the material universe, where birth, disease, where there's still birth and death, right? But there's definitely much better enjoyment. So those who are pious, those who are in the mode of goodness, they will do a lot of piety. And as a result, due to the results of this piety, they will enjoy those results in their next life, in heavenly planets, in higher places, right? So then Krishna says, when one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth again amongst those engaged in fruitive activities. So where is Karma Loka? Karma Loka, or the place of fruitive action, the Karma Kshetra is actually Bhuloka. So Bhuloka is like a plane, it's like a dimension plane. And within Bhuloka, Earth is the central, one of the important planets there. So therefore, this is where karma is gained. One performs karma. If one wants to go to higher places, because in these higher places, in these higher lokas like Swarga Loka, Jana Loka, and all these places, you don't get karma. It's like kind of like a holiday retreat. Like where we go and work, right? We live in a family, we go and work. So that is like Earth. And then after we work, we enjoy our hard-earned money. We go for a holiday somewhere. So that is like the higher planetary systems. So basically, as much money as we have saved, we can enjoy. And once the money runs out, okay, back to work so that we can gain more. Now, if the person didn't work properly, then he has to suffer. So that is like, a hellish, or he goes to prison. He breaks the laws of the job. He has to go to prison and things like that. So that's like hell. So generally, people in the mode of passion, they have lots of desires. So therefore, they want to work to earn the necessity things for them to enjoy. So they live on earthly planets. They take their birth again within earthly planets. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom or even further down. Or in 14.18, it says, or they may even go down to hellish worlds according to their types of sins which they have committed. So Krishna says, when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes, including the mode of goodness, associated with the material body. So these are all conditioning the material body, right? Sort of like this picture here. So this is like the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance. They're all controlling our destiny, our behavior, our thinking, our activities. Free will is given, but the situation and all that, it's all due to our karma from our previous birth, or due to also what the activities we are doing in the current birth. Certain modes become more prominent. So in this way, associated with the material body, he can become free if he can transcend. Transcending means cutting the strings, cutting the ropes of the mode of goodness, also mode of passion and mode of ignorance. All three we cut. So the only thing that can do that is yoga, right? Or bhakti. So these two, basically they're the same. So they can release us from this cycle of birth and death. Then the soul becomes unfettered. The gross body from Prakriti drops away. The subtle body, mind, ego, intelligence, made out of material nature also drops away. And the soul is now rising like a balloon and flies out into the atmosphere. So that is what happens when one is able to practice yoga or bhakti. So he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So you don't have to wait until even you die. If one performs these activities of yoga or bhakti, when one attains this, even within this life, one can enjoy nectar. Nectar means the bliss of transcendence. He is free from karma. He is free from material miseries. Even within this body, it's possible to do that. So Krishna is saying, we don't have to necessarily wait for the death. So then Arjuna inquires, oh my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes. So Arjuna is very interested how to recognize people who are transcendental to this. So why it's important for us to know, because if you remember earlier in chapter 4, Krishna says one should approach a spiritual master, right? And how to recognize this spiritual master? So it's someone who has attained these things, attained these symptoms. So therefore, this is how we can select the appropriate spiritual master. So Krishna goes on, he answers Arjuna's questions. Basically, Arjuna further asks, what is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature? So 3 important questions. The first 2 will help us to identify the type of people who are transcended. And the third question answers, how can we also transcend? So this is called the Sthita Prajna. The Sthita Prajna is one who is already transcended and situated in transcendence, right? So the symptoms and behavior are listed here from 14:21 to 25. They are also listed in other places in chapter 2 also, towards the verses 40 and all that. We didn't cover those in this Gita Gyan. But anyway, here I'm summarizing the 14:21 to 25. Such a person does not hate the modes of nature and its quality. So that means he's beyond, he's transcended. So this transcended is called Suddha Sattva. Suddha Sattva means pure goodness. That means it's not just the mode of goodness, he's in the mode of pure goodness. He's beyond the mode of goodness. Why it's considered pure? Because it's not material anymore. The 3 modes, including the mode of goodness, is material. But pure goodness or Suddha Sattva is beyond the 3 modes and beyond matter. It is spirit. That's why it's called transcendence. So he doesn't hate the 3 modes of material nature and the qualities. He's peacefully situated, who is unwavering and undisturbed in situations, who remains neutral and transcendental, who knows that the modes alone are active. And because he knows the modes alone are active, he doesn't hate people. He doesn't dislike people, or, he doesn't feel too bad about people who do bad things and things like that. He understands they are basically acting due to their 3 modes which they have acquired due to their karma and their desires. Who is always equipoised. He understands the situations clearly. So therefore, he's not disturbed in this equilibrium of mind. He's peaceful all the time. Who sees with equal vision. So here I put a picture how such a person can see. Why he sees with equal vision? Because he sees beyond the body. He sees beyond the gross and subtle bodies, beyond the 3 modes. He looks into the soul. He sees the soul in every living entity. And better than that, he can see Paramatma together with the soul in every living entity. And he's able to see Paramatma everywhere. So therefore, such a person is automatically an environmentalist, automatically a well-wisher for everybody, automatically a peaceful person. You don't have to automatically an animal lover, automatically, so it's because they see equally, automatically a thrifty person. They don't waste Krishna's energy. They don't waste electricity. They don't waste anything. They are automatically, they are, their consciousness is in that way, equal vision. Who is renounced of material activities. This is another important point. Their activities are not material. They are engaged in spiritual activities. So that's a very important point to understand also, right? So this is their symptoms and behavior. Spiritual activities means yoga, like bhakti. So then, this is a very important verse. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances. So why he mentions this, unfailing in all circumstances? Because when we begin with devotional service, we are still within the 3 modes because we are beginning. But if we persevere, if we are determined, and we don't get disturbed or unhinged or new broom sweep clean, that kind of mentality. We continue despite the thick and thin and engage ourselves in our devotional service with faith. So therefore, unfailing in all circumstances. That means we are not disturbed by the three modes. Whether it's sometimes in the mode of, sometimes when we feel we are in the mode of ignorance, we feel like, oh, do I have to get up early? Do I have to chant? So when we think like this, we tell ourselves, no, I have to do it. I made a promise to myself. I made a promise to my guru. So therefore I will do it. So if you think like this, then this is what it means by unfailing in all circumstances. So in the beginning, spiritual activities are like poison. It's described, the material activities are like nectar. It's like honey in the beginning. When we do material activities, it's very sweet. It's like honey in the beginning, but it becomes poison in the end. Whereas spiritual activities may sound very difficult for us. So it is like poison in the beginning. Oh, chanting. Oh, how many rounds? Oh, 1 hour. Oh, 2 hours. Oh, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. Or do I have to get up early? Or do I have to do this prayer? Do I have to eat prasadam? So like that, we feel it's like poison in the beginning, but it becomes like honey or nectar towards the end. So therefore, Krishna is giving us motivation. So those who engage in devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature. So if we continue this unfailingly, when we are performing those devotional activities, despite the difficulties, despite the tribulations, so Krishna is saying at that time, we are already transcended. At that time, the problem is it's not permanent. So one has to continue until it becomes a stable situation. Nitya. When we come to the Nitya platform, then it is stable. So at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So when one performs devotional service with determination, even while within the three modes, he is able to transcend, at least temporarily. That means his activities are transcendental. It is not material. So now the problem is after that is we have to ensure that it's consistent and continuous. So there are different stages of that. So anyway, so now I'd like to tell a short story about Mrigari the hunter. This is basically an understanding about the three modes, how it can. So this person called Mrigari the hunter, he was a very, he's basically a very scary hunter. So what he does, he is a hunter from Parampara. His father, his grandfather, and all were hunters. And then he was the next generation hunter. So what he will do, he will just go to the forest and he will simply hunt all the animals. Even those animals which he cannot eat, even those animals which he feels he's not going to be able to sell, simply for the pleasure of it, he will hunt them. He enjoys the pleasure. He likes to see the animal running away in fear. He likes to see all this. So basically, he's a sadist. And what's worse, he will half kill them. He won't kill them completely. He will half kill them and leave them helpless and in terrible pain. And he's a very, very expert. He knows exactly how to create that kind of pain. So he's like an expert torturer. And he takes pleasure in it. Sometimes I've heard of some people, when they are young, they like to do a lot of cruelty to animals. There's one person I've read about who likes to take the crab, the crab, and then he likes to pull the legs of the crab one by one and see the crab shudder and get pleasure out of it. So there are people like that, sadistic people. So this Murgari is like that. So he used to do this. He used to half kill the animals. So you can understand, you can guess what kind of mode he is in. Anyway, but somehow, due to some sukruti, some good fortune which he had done in his previous births, somehow he had the great pleasure to come across Narada Muni. So one day when Narada Muni happened to walk about, he saw Mrigari. Narada Muni knew about this Mrigari. So he wanted to go and give his blessings to Mrigari. So then he told Mrigari, hey Mrigari, why are you killing so many animals and leaving them half dead? Then this Mrigari said, well, I enjoy doing this. And this is what I've been taught. My father taught me how to do this. And then my father taught me that if I half kill the animal, when I sell the animal to the flesh to the butcher, I will get a better price. Why? Because when the animal is half dying, it releases lots, okay, this is not he saying, but even nowadays, there are some people, when they kill animals, they half kill them because it's apparently that if they are in fear or they are half dying, the body releases a lot of a certain type of hormone. I forgot the name of the hormone. Okay, anyway, there's a hormone, and that hormone apparently softens the flesh, so the meat becomes more tender when the animal dies in that way. So anyway, he knew this secret, so he told Narada Muni, this is why I do this, and at the same time I enjoy it, and this is what I've thought. And then Narada told the Mrigari, don't you realize the sin that you are accruing? And then Mrigari said, sin? What is sin? I don't know about sin. I only know what I should do. So he was in ignorance. Then Narada Muni began to explain about sin. He started telling him about what sin will do for him, what it will cost him in the end, what kind of suffering that's awaiting for him for causing this kind of pain and everything. So, but somehow this Mrigari, he was very innocent. Though he had this kind of desires due to his previous birth and this kind of tendencies, but due to his innocence and to his faith, he was able to accept Narada Muni's instructions. And he had a change of heart. He thought that, okay, what you say is certainly true. I would like to stop this. Please help me. Can you help me do something? Then Narada Muni told him, okay, what you do is you start chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So he gave this mantra to Mrigari. And this Mrigari, who was in the mode of ignorance, but one thing about him, he had great faith. Despite his situation, he had this great faith. So then he told Narada, now look, I'm a hunter. Now that I am going to follow the bhakti path and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, how am I going to live? Because I don't know how to get food other than by hunting. I don't know anything else. Then Narada Muni said, don't worry, I will take care of it for you. So nearby there is a village, and then I will ensure that somehow you will get you will just exist based on whatever someone comes and gives you, you will accept. So in that way, you will exist based on people's charity. So then Mrigari, he had enough faith and determination to repent from all his sinful activities, and he wanted to do this determinedly. So, like just now the verse we saw, despite all situations. So he did it. And then somehow what happened that he became eventually, he just sat and he chanted and he did all these things. And amazingly, people from the village also came and gave him food. One by one, they will come, different preparations. So then one day he asked one of the villagers, how is it that you know I'm here and you are coming to give me food when I am not even begging? So then they told, well, there was this person who came, and then he told us that the most famous and fearsome hunter in this region had suddenly become a saint, and he's living in that area, and he's now chanting Hare Krishna. So, and if all of you can somehow take blessings, it would be very nice. You can give him some food. So that's the reason we want to take your blessings. So therefore, we come here and offer you these things. So then the Mrigari, he became very touched. He's like, oh my goodness, I don't deserve this. So in this way, he continued, and food was being supplied. And one day, Narada Muni came to visit him, his guru. So Narada Muni brought his friend, Parvata Muni. So put together, both of them came to visit. You can see the picture. And Mrigari, and when they saw Mrigari, he saw Narada Muni and Parvata Muni coming from across, from quite a distance. So immediately he got up and he was like trying to come towards them, but he wasn't walking in a normal manner or even running in a normal manner. He was like jumping. He was like pausing, then jumping, then pausing, then jumping, then pausing, then jumping. And then finally, when he reached Narada Muni asked him, what's happened? Why are you doing like this? Why can't you walk straight? Then he's saying, I cannot walk straight because I don't want to accidentally step on any ants or insects which are on the ground. So I'm trying my best to avoid the situation, and that's why this is happening. And I've been doing like this for some time. So then when Parvata Muni heard this, he says, wow, so amazing, your disciple Narada. And then Narada, and then basically then they blessed him and then they left. So this is basically how, despite the three modes of material nature acting, by simply following devotional service, one can transcend these three modes. So this is, that was a story in the scriptures, but we even have example of modern times. So, Prabhupada, at the age of 69 years old, he left Vrindavan alone with 40 rupees in his bag in a cargo ship and suffered 2 heart attacks and eventually reached Boston Harbor with nobody that he knew. And what he did, eventually he went to this place called Tompkins Square Park. And all he had was this kartals. And he sat there in the Tompkins Square Park under a tree and he started chanting Hare Krishna with the kartal, just kartal, no music instrument else, nothing else, no mridangas. Simply chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And somehow, suddenly, that park at that time, they had a hippie gathering. So a lot of people were there and they saw this person dressed in these orange robes, chanting Hare Krishna, and something just struck them. And they found that he's just the purity of his voice, or I don't know, or something they just found in him. And they came towards him. And somehow they were so moved by his chanting that they also started to imitate his chanting. They thought that he's a guru from India or he's doing some kind of mantra. The hippies were also a bit into it. So they also started chanting and dancing. You can see here this picture. They started going around him, chanting and dancing and having something. And then after it was over, he invited them to where he was staying in a small rented shop front, third-hand place. And then somehow he gave Gita class, and then he gave them what little prasadam that he could give them. And they were very touched. And in this way, it became a regular association. They used to come to see him regularly. And in this way, the ISKCON society it exploded at one point of time. So these hippies were converted into happies within a very short period of just a few years. Within 1 year, in fact, some of them converted and they became disciples and all that. So this is the potency of pure devotional service. So therefore, this verse is here, right? One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So it doesn't matter which mode we are in, simply by the performance of these devotional activities or yoga, we can transcend and come to the mode of goodness and then transcend to the mode of pure goodness. So then this final verse is the conclusion and the confirmation of what I've just mentioned. Another important verse. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya vyayasya cha sashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya ikantikasya cha. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So why is Krishna saying this? Because here he says, eventually, by following devotional service, even within the three modes, we can easily come to the level of Brahman. And then since he mentioned Brahman, so he wants to make it clear that the ultimate point of Brahman is the Supreme Lord Bhagavan. So I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman. So therefore he's saying that my devotees come directly to me as Bhagavan. So this is the understanding for chapter 14. So our takeaway for today, right? So we heard about how the knowledge of material creation is helpful for us to understand the supreme goal. So in this way, we heard about Brahman, we heard about Prakriti and its manifestations, and then eventually we came to the point of the conditioning of the jiva. We talked about the three modes, Sattvam, Rajas, Tama, And then how to further transcend these three modes. So the transcending the three modes, and what is the nature of the person who has already transcended, what are his activities, and how Bhakti Yoga is the means of that transcendence, and what is the ultimate goal. The Param Gantim is Krishna, who is the basis of the Brahman. So in this way, we can say that Mother Prakriti and Krishna the Father, the three gunas, quality and results. By bhakti, we can transcend the three gunas. And Krishna is the basis of Brahman. So this is the three takeaways we have today for chapter 14. So I'll leave you with this verse. Living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately by even unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. So very powerful verse. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the essence of the Puranas, right? It says here, even unconsciously chanting, that means one even chants the names of God, even if he's not conscious that he's chanting the name of God, accidentally he chants also, he gets lots of benefit, that he is able to eventually come to the point of freedom from the three modes. He is able to clear thousands of sins. Imagine how much more we may get if we chant consciously. So this is a very, very powerful verse about chanting. So we can all chant together. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much, everybody, for chanting with me and also patiently hearing the class. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. So I mentioned before, this is basically 12 cantos, has 18 volumes in all. So it's a large set. And this is a very, very important scripture where we can hear lots more stories about about Krishna and devotional service. So remember also there is the quiz. So please try out the quiz, and I will send out the links after this. Oh, okay. So and anyway, this one I've not completed yet. We will discuss another day about seva opportunities. Okay. So any questions for today?
No.
So I hope it was a bit clearer today that from what we continued yesterday.
Yes, very much clearer, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So I tried to make the models, so it took me some time, 2 hours. So anyway, hopefully it worked out. Any other questions from anybody else?
No, Prabhu, I don't have any.
Okay, let me just check chat. What's in the chat? Okay, there's one question. Can you explain about the canto books? Okay, what is the canto? Okay. I'm talking about Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so it's basically Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of the. Now there are two fruits from the Vedic tree. Now the entire Vedic scriptures, the Shrutis and the Smritis and the Vedas and the Puranas and the Itihasas and all the different aspects of Vedic scripture. So there are two fruits. The first fruit is Bhagavad Gita, and the second fruit is Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. So this Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita is song of God, spoken by God, whereas Srimad Bhagavatam is all about God. So now that we have heard the song of God, we would want to know more about God, right? If we want to know more about his activity, because Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti is all about understanding the Supreme Lord. So if you want to know more about God and his activities and his creation and many, many beautiful prayers. So many devotees will be praying to the Lord. Very, very wonderful prayers are there. We can memorize lots of stories. Many of these stories which I mentioned throughout this entire Gita Gyan comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So like that. So and it's full of verses with the explanation and the purport given by Srila Prabhupada. So there are many languages also. There's Tamil, there's English, Chinese, Malay, whatever. Every language is there. So the cost of this book is 1,200 ringgit. And it's a full set. You get 18 books set. It's like very beautiful, nice with jacket cover and everything. You can keep in your library and read them. And at the same time, I also give Bhagavatam class, Srimad Bhagavatam class to some of the devotees. And later on, once this is all over, we can also have a join us in that. So that is something. So if you're interested, for those who like to purchase also, there is also installment scheme. If you are interested, you can let me know later. I will mention about these things and also some opportunities for seva and all that later on towards the later part of the classes. Okay, Ataji. So then there's another question. Prabhu, each religion are living with their own believing system, like Hindus regarding cows or auspicious, but Islams are eating and living a good life. Can you please explain? Yeah, they may live a good life now, but as I said, karma is some karma is especially the more dangerous karmas, they take time to fructify. So in their next life, it will be different. So anyway, there is no verse in the scripture in Islam also which says that one should kill a cow. So it's prohibited actually. They are allowed to kill other creatures, but it doesn't say specifically that one should kill a cow. So anyway, there is a reason why there are different scriptures to different people in the world. I'm thinking that I would cover that in the level 2 in one of the talks. Basically, why so many religions in the world? Are there so many different types of gods? Is there only one God? Why so many religions? So all this I will talk about in one of the sessions in the level 2. But there are answers for that. Okay, Mataji?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So if there are no other questions, okay, so then I will see you all tomorrow. We will move on to chapter 15, where we'll hear about now karma, more on activities, because we've heard about prakriti, we've heard about our conditioning, then we'll go further into our activities. Okay, so I'll see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Srila
Hare
Prabhupada ki.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bhagavad Gita
Prabhu.
ki. Jai.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.